to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Choice, Change and Action podcast. You are with me, your host, Simone Milasas, and I am in Peregian Beach. I'm at home, but I'm getting picked up in about an hour to go to Mexico, to go to Puerto Vallarta, and then I'm off to Costa Rica. So as one does, you record a podcast just before you go, because that's what you do, you know? And I'm here today with my wonderful friend, colleague, everything, Sarah Watt. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone.
And you are at your home at the moment too, right?
I sure am.
With all of your animals, your beautiful animals, which is actually what I wanted to talk to you today was about. I wanted to talk to you about animals. So Sarah is a conscious source, conscious writer, facilitator. She's also a joy business facilitator, an access consciousness facilitator. Is there any other specialties you do?
They're probably my main ones, I would say.
Like, when do I have time? You know, anyway, if you want to check it out, you can go in the show notes. You'll find all of Sarah's details in there as well. And you can, follow her on Instagram and find out when her classes are. But I wanted to talk to her about animals, and I'm not quite sure where this is going to go, but the piece I'd like to bring up first is, I'm in love with Sarah's dog, basically. We'll admit that live on podcast. Frankie is so beautiful. And if you actually go to Sarah's podcast, Sarah's Instagram, you know how you have those little round circles up the top? There's one that says Frankie, okay? You can go and click on Frankie and you can see what I'm talking about. And you can see when she was just little and now she's bigger and she's just so gorgeous and everything, okay? Share the love of Frankie. But the thing that I notice is the way Sarah treats her animals. And from a little puppy, Frankie's been coming over to my house until how old is she now?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And I love the way Sarah always talks to her like she gets it. She doesn't talk to her animals as though they're not going to get it. She talks to them as though, hey, you're not allowed to do this. You can't do this. That's not, correct, blah, 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 da, da, da. And then she'll tell them what they're going to do, etc. And I swear to God, her animals just look at her and go, okay, I got it. And they might not get it once, but then they get it again. She doesn't whip them and beat them, and she doesn't yell at them, and she doesn't do this stern thing. She treats them, this is the way I'm going to say it, she treats them like we should be treated. And I want to ask you, like, were you taught that? Did you just be that? Like, how did you discover being with animals and be that way?
Well, wholly and solely, I would say, as I've changed, it's changed. So really the tools of access consciousness, like, I have to credit pretty much everything, because I haven't always, quote unquote, been like this. Well, not, I was always the kid in the dirt with the animals. I was always an animal lover, I would say. But I like many things in my life, I didn't know how to navigate stuff. So I would go down that very normal, this reality path of seeing what other people did and do with their animals, and tried to do that because, I don't know, the same crazy reason we try to do it with our lives, like try to see what other people are doing and make it work for us, this crazy stuff. And then the more I've grown as a person and found more of myself through the tools of access, like really that's where the credit goes. That's where I've found how being with my animals and animals in general is like what's truly available and possible there.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna correct you slightly, I think, because you're saying credit to access. Thank you. I agree with that in one way, but I'm going to say credit to you, Sarah, because I see people come to access classes and, they get these amazing, phenomenal manuals at every class. There's like this manual that's just gold, and then some people don't even open it up. And then you get these tools, you get everything, and they're in class and they're like, yeah, this is great, this is great, this is great. And then they leave class and they don't use the tools. So I'm going to say, yes, you can have all the tools in the world, but
Yeah.
if you don't choose them, it doesn't work. And I see you continuously choose something different. And I see you also continuously, and I like the way you use navigate, like to navigate
Yep.
your life. Like if I look at your
Yep.
childhood and different things that went on with your childhood and growing up, the one common theme I get with you is you sort of went, okay, is there anyone to rely on here? Or is it about relying on myself? And not from exclusion, but from I'm the one that gets to choose my life. I'm not looking at anybody else to choose my life. I'm choosing my life. And that's what I'm heading towards. And I do like the way you navigate that. You continuously seem to lean into possibilities no matter what is going on around you. So
Cool. Thank you for that.
Thank you. You're welcome. I mean, it's a constant inspiration the way you choose stuff, Sarah. I mean, you're one of the people that I even go, can you help me?
Yeah. But you know,
I know you're not going to align and agree with me. I know you're not going to align and agree with me and go, oh my God, what happened? You're actually going to ask me a question, even if it's really confronting. So I'm grateful for that. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah. And this is where animals like are such good indicators of this in a way, because when you're the leader, right, like that's leadership to me. What you were saying is being a leader is someone that's willing to go no matter if anyone follows or not. Like it's this place where I'm like, I see a greater possibility, I'm going to go there and see what shows up. And in an animal's world, that's like that's the pinnacle for them. They want people in their lives like that. They want people in their lives that are so congruent with the direction they're going in. And if you stumble and fall, if you make a mistake, animals don't judge that, but they so value honesty. And you know, like the 5 elements of intimacy, to honor is to treat with regard. And I think that's what I try to get to with my animals, is to treat them with a regard the same way that I treat myself that way, if that makes sense. Like it's where this like meshing happens between where you have this thing with you and they get invited into that.
Do you want to just talk about the 5 elements of intimacy, the way you see that with animals for a moment?
Totally, because I think that's where they function from. So it's trust, honor, vulnerability, gratitude, and allowance. Because really, if you look at a horse or a dog, they happen to be the 2 animals that I have most constantly in my life. Like they kind of need those things to survive. They need to have that in their world in order to navigate for themselves what goes on. You know, like, and each of my animals are so different. And, you know, Frankie's been with me her whole life. Ollie, my horse, has been with me for the past 3 years. But if I treated them all the same, or I treated them all like a dog and a horse, that wouldn't be treating them with regard. That wouldn't be honoring of them as the beings and the creatures they are. I mean, I look at them every day and I treat them based on them, like how they're showing up in the moment and who they are.
I love this topic. I want to break it down a little bit more. So I know that you've mainly got horses and animal and a dog, and you've had a lot of dogs throughout your life, and that's the thing. But let's look at this. Let's look at trust as an example. So you say that that's what the animals are also looking for. Talk about trust with your dog and your horse. Either one.
Well, for horses, like they need to trust themselves and they need to trust their herd mates, because that's how they've survived for hundreds of thousands of years since they evolved from whatever the mammal was before there. They are completely an animal based on trust to survive. So they've got to trust their awareness of their surroundings. They've got to trust their herd mates, that if something goes wrong, they're going to alert them to that. And I think when humans start coming into their lives, they've got to trust that that human is going to treat them a certain way. And most of the time that trust happens through your actions. So if I go out and treat my horses with a heavy hand every day, I'm very heavy on them, you know, I'm constantly correcting them, I'm micromanaging, they start to trust that that's how humans are going to treat them. Like they're very simple in that way. They don't second guess things. They see me coming and they trust today she's going to micromanage me. She's going to treat me this way. But then if you turn that around and you trust that today you're going to show up to be with that animal in the moment in the way that they require it of you, you start to build a trust in them where they bring you into the herd. You become someone that they can rely on and trust in a way that they're like, oh, if shit goes down or if something goes wrong, I can look to you and you will. Exactly. Yeah.
And I remember we were just recently in Blytherville in Texas, and at Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane Here's ranch, and we were horse riding. And Cody, who is the manager of the property and an amazing horse rider and everything there, and we were having lessons with him. But one of the things, he was on one of the horses, and there was what do you call them? Like the gates that they jump over, the barrels and all of that. And the horse sort of accidentally kicked one when he went over it, and he got this like scare, this fear. And so Cody just immediately went, right, back over it, back over it, back over it, back over it, back over it. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm showing the horse that this is okay, and I'm never going to put this horse into a situation that's going to hurt it. So, and you could see that the horse's world was sort of like, why are we going back there? Why are we going back there? And then after like the fourth or fifth time went, oh, it's just this thing. Oh, it's just this thing. It's just this thing. And sort of kept doing it. And it was so beautiful to watch how there was nothing in Cody's world that paused with his choice. And I think that's a key piece too, of like trusting what you choose with an animal. And like you said right at the beginning, Sarah, it's like following through, like not being fickle with an animal. I don't think animals do very well with that.
No, they don't. You've got to be congruent. Like there's a congruency that they crave from you. And whether it's a dog or a horse or any animal, and I think that is the trust thing. They want to trust that you're going to be predictable in a way, but not predictable to a level where you're boring. It's predictable to know that you're going to do things that keep them safe. Really.
Is that like, I saw this meme the other day on Instagram, and this dog is like waking its owner up going, did you know that it's 3 minutes past 7 and I usually get fed at 2 minutes past 7?
Yeah. Hey, you never need to own a watch when you have animals around, because I tell you, even my horses will be standing at the gate eyeballing me through the door when it's exactly their feeding time. They don't need watches. They just know.
Amazing. That's just so wonderful that they're like that. Okay, so let's go to, I love that you mentioned the 5 elements of intimacy. So let's go to honor. Let's talk about honor with animals.
Yep. Yeah. So I believe like what I've learned is to honor someone is to treat them with regard. Like that thing where you really, you regard them for who they are, and it can change, like it doesn't mean that because they were this yesterday, they're going to be that tomorrow. It's this place where to honor someone or something like an animal is to look at them and see them through the eyes of like who they truly be. And I keep looking over there because Frankie's passed out on the lounge asleep. And I think like every time I look at her, I try to see her with this place of like, to honor her for the being that she is, not for what she was doing 10 minutes ago, or but to really look at her in this way. And with horses, it's a lot more important in a way, because especially if you intend to ride them or something like that, you've got to take in the whole picture. You've got to see well, I mean, you've got to see all of them, like their body, what's going on there. But beyond that, because they really horses function from a space of a huge energetic space, basically. Like they take up a big space. Yeah. Well, and in the conscious rider classes, you learn about that, like their zone and where their zone is, and how in the wild it's very different. But even horses in captivity, their zone is very big. And if you get on a horse and ride it from its body, like it's just not ever going to be very much fun.
So one of the tools that I was taught many years ago, especially because we ride so much in places like Costa Rica, so there is a lot of space. And one of the things that when Gary, taught me originally to do that, like not ride from just being on the horse's body and just being my body and its body, it's like spanning out. So one of the things I would do is I'd shut my eyes for a second, and then I would expand myself out, and I would also open up and I'd look at all the trees, and I'd go, okay, what's beyond that valley? What's beyond that, that over there? And I would take myself further out in order to, I don't know, I guess hopefully bringing that horse with me and its expansion of its awareness as well. And you also just reminded me, swimming with dolphins, which I'm about to go and do in Mexico again. It's one of the only places in the world that you can swim with wild dolphins. By the way, side note, I wear glasses, and I just got these prescription goggles, and I'm so excited because I'm actually going to be able to see the dolphins.
That's very cool.
One of the things the dolphins do is they're so perceptive of you. And so if you jump in the water, and I've swum with dolphins a few times now, and I love dolphins. It's like the only tattoo I have on my body is of dolphins, you know. And when you jump in the water, if you have any sort of anxiety in your world, or you're a little bit trepidatious, then the dolphin goes, oh, this animal needs space, and swims away. I think that's such a beautiful gift. And I mean, if we did that with people more so as well, like, you know, that those times where you're like, I need space, but everyone's like crowding you. It's like, if we were willing to have that awareness of the honoring of what we can be for each other and the way animals are, I think that could just be like that as part of the ecosystem of the way we live with the earth and the animals that we are so capable of and yet haven't quite tapped into.
Yeah.
What would it take to have that? So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, they're just such great practice for it too. Like, I mean, they're so forgiving as well. Like, if you fuck up and you encroach on an animal's personal space when they don't want you there, I mean, 9 times out of 10, they're just going to get over it. They don't care. Like, they're not so much like people where we're like, yeah, but they'll give you those signals. If you're willing to play with that energy and be like, hey, I want to get better at reading the room. I want to get better at knowing when people need space or when people desire something from me. Friggin' get around some horses or some dogs and practice with them, because they will show you all of and they don't use words. So you've got to be so keyed into their body language, their energy, what they're showing you. But they'll forgive you as well. Like if you walk up to a horse, I mean, the worst it's going to do is turn its bum to you and run away or something like that. Like,
or snap at you or something. But that's a really obvious thing. It's interesting because you're like Frankie as well, your dog. She's so affectionate, like, to me, and I know she's not with everybody. Like, she doesn't, she knows her peeps, but also there's some days where she's really affectionate and she just wants to be like, yeah, let's just cuddle. And there's other days where she's like, yeah, I'm done. And she goes and sits down, and she's basically like, have you got a snack? Because that's what I want. I'm not really looking for cuddles today. I'm looking for snacks.
But they're so clear in what they're saying. Exactly. Yeah.
I love it.
They don't take it personal. There's nothing personal about it, which is what I also love about them. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And if we learned that from animals and engage that with ourselves, that would be incredible. Because how much do we hold back because we are not trying to offend someone, or we're trying to prove something, or all of that bullshit. So let's go to the next one, which is perfect, is allowance. So let's talk about allowance with animals. How do you see that?
Allowance. Yeah. And I mean, I love these elements as well, because they can't exist separately. Like each of them bleed into the next. They contribute to each other. And allowance is really being in allowance of however it's showing up in that moment, however the animal is behaving or whatever's showing up in that moment, and not having it takes you out of expectation. It takes you out of conclusion. I mean, to be in allowance with an animal means that you are 100% present with them in the moment. And again, like when you're with horses, especially if you intend to do anything with them, like ride them and stuff like that, you have to be willing to be in an allowance to see where they're functioning from. Because if you go in there and you're like, okay, we've got 2 hours, I'm going to catch you, I'm going to saddle you up, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. If the horse is like, actually, no, we're not going to do that, and you don't have allowance for that, you watch the shit fall, like the shit hit the fan. That horse will be and then you end up and you're at loggerheads with this animal because you've got a projection and an expectation that they're not meeting. And rather than having allowance, you start to get into this full-on fight with them over something. Whereas if you just went, oh, okay, so it appears as though you're not really interested in being ridden today. What can we do? How can we change this situation? What do you want to do? How can we get a little bit out of this? Like, what can I receive from you? Or what can we be together today? Like,
I love that question too. What can I receive from you, and what can we be today? And you know, as you're talking about this allowance, because again, we've ridden so much in Costa Rica, I was just thinking of all the different horses. And, you know, I think I'm lucky enough that nearly every horse I've ever ridden likes water and doesn't get scared by it. Like they go into water, and I mean, one of them would just go in there and he would stop halfway, and every time he'd start like splashing and kicking. But it's interesting because so many people would have this point of view of like, you know, stop him going through it. And I was like, he likes it. I'm okay with it. And then the second that we're done, it's like, we're done, let's go. But it's like, why would I not let my horse have this joy? That's for me. And I'm really pleased if you're listening to this. I know, you know, a lot of animal people have really different points of view. that's part of this. Okay. It's part of being an allowance
totally.
of how you be with an animal, how Sarah bees with an animal, how I be with an animal. And hopefully for me, it's like, what awareness can we gain from every animal that we interact with, from, you know, a bee to a bird, to a horse, to a dolphin, to a dog, to a cat, all of it and more. What if we really acknowledge that, as I said before, we are part of the ecosystem on this planet, and we be a part of that, and we don't just, you know, watch it and observe. There was I went on a game drive God, that was in January. That feels like forever ago. In January this year. And I'll never, the game driver said, you know, so many people come on these game drives and they sit on the truck like they're just like they're watching a TV show or something. It's like they're just observing. But we are a part of this. Like, how do you want to interact? How do you want to be with the earth? And how do you want to be with animals? And that's what I would like everybody to get to. And I also see, you know, as I mentioned, Sarah facilitates conscious horse, conscious rider. There's also quite a few conscious horse, conscious rider facilitators around the world. You don't have to be a horse person to go to this class. It's like you can learn about leadership. You can learn about trust. One of the things I've learned is trusting my body, because I was always so, you know, I'll go snow skiing, I'll do all this stuff, I'll go for a run, but that's me and my body. And then all of a sudden you've got me, my body, and an animal. It's like
a big
that's
animal.
A big animal, exactly. Not just a little one. That's a whole different level of, you know, trust, allowance, honor, and vulnerability, and all of that. So let's go to vulnerability with animals. I get what you said, that they all sort of hold hands together, but is there anything extra you want to say about being vulnerable with an animal and what that can create?
Well, it's such a good practice, again, like talking about that thing of reading the room and learning about, you know, the space and the requirement of the animal you're with. You can show up as yourself. Like you can show up in such a state of vulnerability with animals, because that's where they function from. Like if I'm with my dog, she's not like, oh shit, you know, am I acting okay? Am I behaving the right way? Is she judging me? Like she's just her, like 100% unapologetic. Never for a moment will you see a horse or a dog or any animal second guess themselves. They are completely that open wound at all times. And if your horse, like, you know, Ollie, my boy, he's quite a reactive horse. He's very sensitive. If there's a lot of noise and things going on around him, he can get a little bit crazy about it, but he doesn't stop and go, oh shit, did I offend someone or have I done something wrong? He's like, hey, this is me. So if you want to interact with me, we're going to meet each other here somewhere. It's not a matter of me covering myself up or changing who I be to make things easier on you. It's like this space where they just completely and utterly exist as themselves.
You know, I like that you said that. And I remember there's been at least 2 or 3 times I can recall at Gary and Dane's ranch in Texas. And I've just been so vulnerable with myself and what's going on in my life. And there's been massive changes, etc. And I love just wandering around that ranch on my own. And anytime as you drive in on the left, there's this paddock. And I think it's got most of I want to say the teenagers. Horses. That's what it always appears like, you know. And whenever I've gone in there and my intention is, oh, I'd like to go pat a horse, I'd like to go say hello, they all look at you like, no, and, you know, and walk away or something. And every time I'm there, either at the gate or walk into the paddock, and I've just got this level of vulnerability in my world, like everything can just sort of go to a pile of dust. Without a doubt, one of those horses comes over to me and just like either puts its head on me or lets me touch it, or like this moment. And I'm always, I remember I made a video of it because I went, it's not funny how every time you're vulnerable, an animal comes over and goes, hi.
Yeah, because you're like them. You're like them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's another horse.
Yeah.
She's part of our herd. She belongs with us. That's the energy of us.
You know, when I was little, we grew up in this, I grew up in Sydney, but we used to go in Tamworth in New South Wales. Nearly every second weekend, we'd go to my cousin's ranch or farm. You don't have ranches in Australia, really, you have farms, properties. And we'd go to the property and they had racehorses and amongst many other animals. And one day I was young. I think I was like 7 or something like that, round about that age, give or take a year. And, you know, I was really huffy and everything because I don't know, I think I'd got in trouble for something. But in my world, people didn't get me. They weren't understanding what was going on for me. So I went off on a huff and I said, I'm going to go and hang out with my friend. And they all sort of laughed and went, you know, who's your friend sort of thing. And then they found me with the top stallion in the property and he's in the paddock and I'm like sitting between his front legs and I've got both my arms wrapped around his front legs and I'm just like sitting between his legs and all happy. And they were like, oh shit. And they were like, I heard this story years later and they're like, Simone, you know, come on, like, let's go over here thinking the stallion's going to hurt me. And I was like, no, I'm with my friend, you know. And apparently I stayed there for ages between this horse's legs and he totally looked after me. Like I remember he's putting his head down and, you know, putting it on my head and everything, but they were scared shitless thinking this horse was going to do something. But I knew, no, this horse is actually my friend. This horse has my back, you know. It's being the 5 elements of intimacy. Basically, fuck you guys. You don't get it. A little kid, you know. So, and I would like to, I'm actually going to ask right now of myself, make the demand of myself and the request of the universe, because you cannot demand of the universe or demand of anyone else. You can demand of yourself and you can request of the universe and all the animals in the world that I'm going to ask to be even more in communion and functioning from those 5 elements of intimacy. And everything it doesn't allow that to show up, destroy and uncreate it. If you choose, guys,
yes,
right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all names, shorts, boys, provids and beyonds. And actually, let's do a process of what energy, space, consciousness, choice, magic, miracles, mysteries, possibilities, power, and potency can you, that's the being, and your bodies be that would allow you to be in total communion with the earth and all animals for all eternity. And everything it doesn't allow that to show up, we destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all names, shorts, boys, provids and beyonds. And that is the Access Consciousness Clearing Statement. If you haven't heard it before, you can go and check it out at theclearingstatement.com. Myself and Dr. Dane here are talking about it. It will be in the show notes. So the last one we have is gratitude, right?
Yep.
Yeah, gratitude. 5 elements of intimacy. So you've got trust, honor, allowance, vulnerability, and gratitude. So, I mean, for me, that's Captain Obvious. It's like when you're really grateful for your animal and they're grateful for you. It's just like,
yeah. But and I mean, where gratitude exists, judgment can't. Like, how often do we judge something in our animals that they've done? I mean, for me, it's as simple as that. Like, everywhere that I'm grateful for something, I can't be judging it. So it's an energy for me where I'm constantly asking to be more of that for myself and with everyone and everything. And it's also an elemental, which to me means, like, no matter what it means to anyone else or to take any of that significance out, an elemental to me is an ingredient for creation. So it's something that you infuse in something. It's something you use to create something greater. So every time I go out to interact with my horses or with my dog, and I come from that space of gratitude, no matter what shows up, I am so grateful to be here. Like, how did I get so lucky to have you in my life? How did I get so lucky to be here with you right now? Always, 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 without a doubt, something greater shows up. It grows like a seed that's been nurtured in such a beautiful way. So, yeah.
I love that you said that. I'm just going to expand on the elementals a little bit more because you mentioned it. Because we have elementals, right? We have this periodic chart and there's all these things that science has put on this periodic chart as what we call elementals. But you know, and we've got quantum entanglements as well. And quantum entanglements is everywhere, okay? So, I mean, as you choose, as you be, everything, you interact with quantum entanglements all the time. And there's a whole lot of elementals that pretty much, you know, science hasn't put them on the periodic chart. They're not proven. But what if you engaged with the quantum entanglements of the elementals and there was elementals such as gratitude, joy, it's like, you know, peace, and all of these aspects, as Sarah said, it's like you cannot be in judgment if you are functioning from the elementals. There's no definition to it, and there's no linearity to it, and there's no, I want to say, edge to it. Like, it's not boxed, it's not confined. If you look at gratitude, it just keeps flowing and it keeps expanding. So I love that you pointed out that when you engage with the elementals, it's actually an ingredient for creation. It's one of the choices to engage with elementals to create something different, to create something greater, etc. And we can also choose to engage with the definitions and the judgment, which, guess what? It never actually creates something greater. It usually creates something less. So what if you started to engage with the quantum entanglements and the elementals with those 5 elements of intimacy and find out what it's like to be a part of the ecosystem here on the planet with you, your body, beings, and all the animals and everything it doesn't allow that to show up. Can you and will you destroy and uncreate it? Right and wrong, good and bad, poc and parona, in shorts, boys, provids and beyonds. I love doing these podcasts when I have really all I knew was Sarah, animals.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's so cool.
So now, can you just quickly rattle off where people can find you? Instagram, Facebook, website, etc. We'll have it in the show notes as well, so don't forget to subscribe and you'll get all of that.
Yeah, I would say my website and Instagram are probably the best. So sarahwatt.com.au, because I'm Australian, and my Instagram handle is Sarah Watt Access or something. Anyway, I changed it recently because it used to just be my name, and I was like, I think I need to have something a bit easier in there. But yeah, if you get to my website, you'll also find a link to my Instagram. So.
And we will have it in the show notes. And also don't forget to follow us on Choice, Change and Action Instagram. And we will be linked to Sarah's Instagram on that as well. So it's going to be really easy for you guys to find us. So, and if you want to find out more about the classes that Sarah has upcoming, I know she's spoken to me about nearly everywhere we travel. She goes, I want to do a Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class here. So in truth, she should be having one in Brazil, one in Colombia. She did one in India, one in the Middle East. It's like, all these different places. Oh yeah. And maybe her home. Oh, and also El Lugar, Costa Rica, and the ranch. It's one of my
They're all coming.
I get so excited about it. And I'm definitely going to be, as soon as I can, I'm going to be coming to one of your classes because I love the way you be with animals. And I like the way you choose to navigate your life as well. It's like I said before, right at the beginning, you are a constant inspiration to me, Sarah, and I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to have you in my life too. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
And I think, I'm off to, like I said, I'm off to Mexico. I'm off to Costa Rica. So yeah, jump on my Instagram. I'm sure you're going to see videos, etc. And the next class I think I have coming up that will be here is Right Riches for You Beginners. I just happen to have the manual here. So it's Right Riches and it's online. And I'm actually really excited about this class because someone pinged me in my Instagram this morning and they said, I'd like to do this, but I can't afford it. And they said, please advise. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, but I can't afford it, please advise. And I went, I said, the first thing is you might want to stop saying, but I can't afford it. Because if you say, but I can't afford it, you're never going to be able to afford it. What if you said, oh, you know what would it take for me to be able to afford this? What action can I take today to create the money? There is no excuse why you are not, creating $1 million a year. I'm going to say, come to the Right Riches for You Beginners class. So it'll be in the show notes. So thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me here. And thank you, everyone, for joining me. And I'll see you somewhere in the world or online or whatever it is. Enjoy your day. I learned tranquillo, buona giornata. Basically, stay calm. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at Simone Milasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes. And lastly, have way too much fun today.